If sports lost every rule at once, every foul, every boundary line, every referee's authority, the strange part wouldn't be the violence. It would be the scoreboard. Because the moment nobody agrees on what counts, nobody can actually win anything, and that quiet problem shows up before anyone throws a punch. Picture a normal Sunday. A soccer stadium, second half, one team up by a goal. The referee's whistle is exactly where it always is, in a little pouch on his hip. Nothing about the object has changed. What changed, at exactly 3:47 in the afternoon, is that the whistle stopped meaning anything. He can blow it, people will still hear it, but there's no rule left saying anyone has to care. For about 4 seconds, the game looks completely normal. That's the part people don't expect. The players keep passing, keep marking their opponents, keep glancing at the linesman out of habit. Old muscle memory doesn't know the rulebook is gone yet. Then someone picks up the ball with his hands, not out of rage, just to test it. The way you press a door, you're not sure is locked, and nothing happens. No whistle that matters, no card, no consequence. And that's the actual first break. Not chaos, but a kind of experimental silence. 30,000 people watching one man hold a ball like a question. Here's the part that gets missed in the easy version of this idea. No rules in sports sounds like it just means more violence, more tackling, fewer stoppages. That's the lazy answer. The real first casualty is something much smaller and much more boring. The final score. A score is not a fact about the world. It's an agreement. 3 points for a touchdown only means something, because everyone in the stadium, the broadcast booth, the record books, and the betting markets all agreed in advance on what a touchdown is. Take away the shared rulebook, and the number on the scoreboard becomes a rumor instead of a result. So the first system that quietly breaks isn't safety, it's record keeping. 2 commentators, live on air, start arguing about whether a play even counted, because there is no longer a shared definition of counted. One league statistician, sitting in a back office, surrounded by monitors, realizes her entire job description just became meaningless in real time. She was hired to log facts. There are no facts left to log, only opinions, shouted from a crowd. Within the hour, this spreads sideways, into places you wouldn't expect first. Not into street fights, into insurance. A stadium's insurance policy is built on defined risk, X number of expected injuries, from Y category of contact under Z enforced rules. Remove the rules and every actuary calculating premiums for professional sports is suddenly working blind, but the logic holds either way. Insurers don't fear chaos. They fear chaos they can't price. Within days, some leagues would find their coverage simply withdrawn, not because of danger, but because danger without limits can't be measured. And unmeasurable risk is the one thing an insurance company genuinely cannot sell. Meanwhile, the athletes themselves split almost immediately into 3 very different types of people, and this is where it gets interesting, because they don't all react the same way. The first group panics selectively, not about getting hurt, but about becoming irrelevant. A gymnast who spent 15 years perfecting a routine judged by tenths of a point realizes that precision itself, her entire skill, no longer has anywhere to land. Judges score differences that used to matter enormously. Now there's no shared scale to score against. Her specific kind of excellence, built entirely on rules, becomes almost invisible without them, like a locksmith standing in a world where every door has already been kicked open. The second group does the opposite. They were built for exactly this moment. A 280-pound lineman whose advantage was always physical rather than technical suddenly becomes the most valuable athlete on the planet. Formal rules had been quietly limiting his advantage for his entire career, and now they're gone. He doesn't need to adapt. Reality just adapted to him. This is the uncomfortable part of the scenario. Removing rules doesn't create a level playing field. It reveals whose advantage the rules had been holding back all along. The third group are the improvisers, and they're the ones the cameras end up loving. A basketball player starts calling his own private truce with an opponent mid-game. You don't grab my jersey, I won't grab yours. A 2-person contract negotiated in real time, on the court. in front of 80,000 people. That's not a rule. Nobody enforces it. It's just two people deciding that trust is more useful than chaos, for exactly as long as it benefits them both. This tiny moment is the entire scenario in miniature. Which brings us to the actual hidden system. This whole premise exposes rules were never really about fairness for its own sake. They were a technology for creating enough shared trust that a stadium full of strangers could agree, afterward, on what just happened. Take that away, and the deepest problem isn't danger. It's memory. Nobody can agree on history anymore. Was that a goal? Depends who you ask. Was that a foul? There's no such thing as a foul now. Only an opinion with a loud voice behind it. Broadcasters figure this out fastest, because their entire business model depends on drama that resolves. Within a week, networks stop trying to cover these events as sports and start quietly repackaging them as something closer to spectacle. Less game, more unscripted theater, closer in spirit to a demolition derby than a league match. The language shifts. Commentators stop saying, "That's a penalty," and start saying, "Well, that just happened." Ratings, oddly, climb for a while. Uncertainty is entertaining right up until it becomes exhausting, and it takes longer than people expect to reach exhausting. Betting markets are where the strangeness gets almost funny. Sportsbooks built entire industries on defined outcomes. Win, lose, draw, by how much? Without a shared rulebook, who won becomes unbettable in the traditional sense, so the markets don't disappear, they mutate. Within days, new odds appear for things like, will the match end with an agreed winner at all, or will both teams still be on the field at the final buzzer? People start betting on whether consensus itself will survive the game, which is a strange sentence to write down, but it's exactly the kind of thing you'd expect once trust becomes the scarce resource instead of skill. Now here's the part that corrects the obvious ending everyone expects, the one where all of this just collapses into permanent chaos. It doesn't, and this is the honest, slightly contrarian insight buried in the scenario. Chaos is expensive to maintain, and humans are remarkably fast at rebuilding structure once they realize nobody else is going to. Within a season, something odd starts happening, at the amateur level first. A Sunday league team, then a schoolyard pickup game, then a small regional circuit. Players start voluntarily agreeing on informal codes before matches even start. Not because any authority tells them to, because two teams that don't agree on basic terms can't actually compete against each other in any way that means anything to either of them. A contest with zero shared rules isn't a wild game. It's just two separate solo performances happening to occupy the same field at once. This is, historically, not even new. Bare-knuckle boxing before the 1860s had no weight classes, no round limits, no band holds. Matches could run for over 100 rounds and end only when one man literally could not stand. It wasn't outside authorities who eventually tamed it. It was the fighters and promoters themselves who wrote the Queensberry rules. Because an unregulated fight wasn't more exciting forever, it was just harder to profit from, harder to repeat, harder to build a career around. Rules, in this light, were never a cage put on sport from outside. They were something sport built for itself, out of necessity, the first time chaos stopped paying. That's the strange new normal this scenario eventually settles into. Not one universal chaos, but thousands of small, private, self-negotiated rulebooks, rebuilt from the ground up, league by league, neighborhood by neighborhood. Each one slightly different, each one fragile, each one held together only by the fact that everyone involved has quietly agreed. It's more useful than the alternative. Referees don't disappear. They come back, except now they're not appointed by a federation. They're chosen by mutual consent of the players themselves, the way early boxing needed a trusted third party before it needed a written code. Which brings the whole thing back to that whistle, sitting in that first referee's pouch on that first Sunday afternoon. It was never really the whistle that had power. It was the 4 seconds after it blew, where 30,000 people and 2 teams all silently agreed to treat the sound as meaning something. Take away the agreement, and the whistle is just a piece of metal, making noise into an empty stadium. That's the part that says something about the world outside sports, too. Most of the systems we live inside, money, contracts, traffic laws, even ordinary conversation, work for exactly the same reason that referee's whistle worked. Not because the rule itself has any real power, but because enough people, most of the time, quietly agree to act as if it does. Remove that shared agreement anywhere, in a stadium, or a currency, or a courtroom, and you don't get a more honest version of the system. You get silence, followed, eventually, by people rebuilding the exact same kind of structure they just lost. Because it turns out, some rules were never really about controlling the game. They were the only thing making it a game at all.